So when it comes to succession, so succession is actually referring to like how the species composition changes over time because the abiotic and biotic factors change over time through that cycle. So this is a non-seasonal. So this is not like, oh, it goes through like a spring and then summer and stuff. This is like can happen over years. And it's directional because we kind of go from early succession species to late succession and climax species. And continuous pattern of decolonization extinction because it happens like, of course, like some areas, like it happens like less often or slower. In some places, it happens faster and more often. So when it comes to primary and secondary succession, so primary succession is like when you kind of starting from scratch, like there is no soil, there is no living organisms, nothing. Even your rocks have to go through weathering for you to have a soil so that that soil can have like, can go through a process for the nitrogen to accumulate in it so something can live in it, like grass or something. But secondary succession is like actually the case like when um like so um so secondary succession is like actually the soil is there. So yeah, again, like microscopic stuff, maybe spores, like, but mostly like it's just the soil really. Most of the things like are gone. If something washes the soil, it's primary. If you don't wash the soil, it's secondary. Yeah, like for example, like a volcano, so it kind of like covers everything. So that soil that was supposed to be habitat is gone. So that it leads to primary. Yeah. Huh. So you see, we're gonna of course like define these species though. Like when there's no life, you see no soil. So there's gonna be primary succession, and it's gonna lead to pioneers actually showing up. If there's some life, like for example, the spores or like those microscopic stuff, we have a secondary succession, which leads to intermediate stage. And that intermediate stage can actually lead to climax stage, and then climax stage can actually either kind of go to the beginning, goes, and then primary succession and stuff. So yeah. So when it comes to like these successions, we have facilitation, which is like early succession species kind of need all right. So as I was saying, for example, at the beginning, there's no shade, there's no protection from the wind, the level of the nitrogen is very low. So early succession species kind of like come in, and again, it's not like they do it for the sake of the later species, but they kind of like create a great environment for themselves. And then the late succession ones are like, huh, that's nice. And then they come in and then they wipe them out by competition. And another thing they can do is that the early succession species can actually interfere with the process of like you going to the next stage by competing with late colonists and stuff. And intolerance is that, and yeah, so pretty much like they're saying like these early successions might actually not have a positive or negative effect on the arrival of like the later succession ones, pretty much. Right. So this is kind of like really just reading a chart, really. So what it's actually saying is that so let's look at the chart first. So without the algae, you're higher. With the algae, you're lower. So apparently algae is not really helping. So it would be an inhibiting effect, like obviously. Yeah. Uh, Yeah, without the allergy, it's higher. With the allergy, it's lower. Same thing. But in this case, you see with the allergy, the number has jumped so much. So that is actually having a positive effect. And again, if it didn't make any difference, then it would have been like it would have been like the tolerance one. Like if it didn't make a difference. So so you might have actually heard about like this one. Which was like, so you have two different, again, of course, this is a spectrum though, but I mean, obviously we're kind of going on at the extremes. So early succession species are R species. So look, at the beginning of the succession, the conditions are very bad. So, and also like everything is gone. So first of all, you have to be a good disperser to actually arrive first before everyone else. Two, you have to be able to fast grow. That means that you can actually spread around faster. And also early maturity, because the environment is so it's not so ideal. You want to actually have children before you die for whatever reason. And you want to have like as many children as possible. And also one thing that I didn't say here, you have to be very tolerant of harsh abiotic environments, which would be like a lot of sunshine, no shadow, low nitrogen levels, and such. The late succession ones are, so these ones are very good competitors. Why would they have to be? Because it's a stable environment, so there are a lot of other species, so you have to survive. You have to fight with everyone. Slow growers, because they spend more time on competition, grooming, parenting, and less on, for example, like growing fast. Later maturity, because they're more confident that they can actually make it, so they don't have to prioritize like having children or offsprings or whatever earlier. And they tend to have a much longer lifespans, which would be like these trees. So when he says you can't be good at everything, so obviously it means like it comes with a trade-off. Like you can't have like both of them. So, right. So what they're saying, oh, okay. So this is kind of what they're saying is that, okay, if it is a like a constant condition, one species can actually totally like wipe out the other one, and then this guy goes extinction and this guy wins under constant conditions. But what if we constantly go through these successions or like these harsh abiotic incidences, disturbances? Then we have this, like you see, like this guy goes up, this guy goes down. But then something happens, this guy goes down, so this guy can actually breathe again. Like breathe again, I mean, he can get a break. Can go up, and then this guy goes up, but again, then when it's peaking, so this guy is like under more pressure, then drops, and then yeah. So this is kind of like showing that when you're constantly, so like earlier in the video, like we actually mentioned like how like a higher trophic species can actually take care of this guy, so this guy can actually get a break. Here, there is no other species. It's actually like the disturbance that is like removing some of them, so there's less competitive stress on the red one. That's really all it is saying. So yeah, and so yeah, so this is kind of like what they're saying is that at the beginning of the like through different successions, obviously like the early succession species are kind of like come first, because again they're very abiotic tolerant and also very good at dispersal. Then the mid successions come up and then they wipe these guys out because these guys are terrible at competition. And then the late succession, aka climax species, actually come in, and these guys are super good at competition. So they wipe out these ones. Literally. Let's see what this one is. So right. Okay. So again, they're talking about the boulder size. So again, these are rocks that species like live underneath or until above. So they're actually kind of like we're about to get to like a actual chart for this, which is that so when you actually like when it comes to depending on the level of disturbance you have, it will influence your species diversity, really. So when you have small, so high disturbance on small boulders means that there's only a few species can persist. Hold on, let me read this. Intermediate disturbance on a medium boulders allows things. Yeah, so they're kind of like talking about, yeah, so if you have a high disturbance on a very small boulder, that means that only few species can persist, and probably those are the early succession ones. If you have an intermediate disturbance on a medium boulders, allows a mix of early and late, because again, you're constantly removing these guys and constantly like early succession ones keep arriving. And then if you have a low disturbance on a large boulder, that's pretty much the dominant ones are going to be able to live there. This is the only way that you can actually, um, the only way you can actually, like get rid of the late succession ones, so there is room for the early succession one, is by these disturbances. So if there's low disturbance, then these guys are pretty much going to be dominating, really. So yeah, so and then we have these, like, so you see, there's like a theory of the intermediate disturbance hypothesis. So the highest level of diversity is reached when you have intermediate level of disturbance in terms of frequency and intensity.